Hello, boys and girls and babes. Welcome back to the Janae Talks Caps podcast. As always, thank you all so much for tuning in today. We are glad to have you here with us, and man, we have got a ton to talk about today. Lots of news to catch you up on regarding the Caps and the rest of the NHL, really. So why don't we start with the biggest news, certainly as far as the Washington Capitals are concerned, which just broke earlier today, and that is that John Carlson, your leading scorer again among all NHL defensemen this season, has finally been named a finalist for the Norris Trophy as the league's top defenseman. The other two finalists are Roman Josi of the Nashville Predators and Victor Hedman of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, let's state the obvious. This is a long time coming for John Carlson. It is long overdue. Because this is actually, if you can believe it, it's actually the first time in his career so far that he's been named a finalist, even though it is, by my count, the third year in a row now where he is definitely deserving of at least being a finalist for the award. So I don't know what members of the Professional Hockey Writers Association have been smoking for these last 3 years, but they've finally put the bong down for long enough to at least get a finalist nomination right, it seems. So yes, John Carlson and the Norris Trophy. It's been a strange correlation between those two so far throughout John's career. Similar, actually, to, you'll remember when Mike Green scored a ridiculous 31 goals and 73 points and posted a plus 24 rating in just 68 games in the 2008-2009 season for the Caps, and yet somehow he was forgotten by the Professional Hockey Writers Association on their Norris Trophy ballots as well. He lost out to Zdeno Chara that year, who had put up 50 points and a plus 23 rating in 80 games, so you try and figure that one out. And then same thing again for Mike Green. In the 2009-2010 season for the Caps, he put up 76 points in 75 games and posted a staggering plus 39 rating. And yet again, the PHWA forgot his name and his worth when filling out their ballots for the Norris Trophy, as he lost again, this time to Duncan Keith, who had put up 69 points and a plus 21 rating that season. So if you're keeping track, and we will demonstrate the same in just a moment here with John Carlson, but it really seems like if you're a defenseman on the Washington Capitals, it doesn't seem to matter if you outscore everyone by a wide margin and post a plus-minus rating that's twice as high as the next guys, you still are not going to be awarded the Norris Trophy. So nothing fishy there at all, though, right? I don't know. I kind of think that it reeks like halibut here, but maybe that's just me. In any case, because Mike Green never won one, even though he was deserving of two Norris Trophies, if Carlson does win the Norris Trophy this season, he will be the first Capitals defenseman to do so since Rod Langway won it in back-to-back seasons in 1983 and 1984. And he would, as well, actually join Langway as the only other player in Washington Capitals franchise history to win the Norris Trophy. So it would be pretty cool. But like I said, it's been an uphill battle, really, for Capitals defensemen trying to win the prestigious Norris Trophy in the past. We talked already about Mike Green. And for John Carlson, you know, he should have won the fucking thing 2 years ago when he led all NHL defensemen in points, and he should have been a finalist for the second time last season as well, when he put up 70 points, posted a plus 21 rating, and was one of the league leaders in time on ice as well. And so really, when you look at it, theoretically, it should be his third time being a finalist, and it should be his second time winning it. But alas, it is his first time as a finalist, and it fucking better be his first time winning it as well. Obviously, we know that Carlson led all NHL defensemen in points again this season by a wide margin, scoring 15 goals and 75 points in just 69 games at the time of the NHL's pause on March 12th due to the coronavirus pandemic. And of course, the remainder of the regular season was eventually canceled, but had the NHL been able to complete the remainder of the regular season, Carlson was on pace to have a ridiculous 89 points by season's end. So not only would that have set the franchise record for the most points in a season by a defenseman, a record that is currently held by Larry Murphy, who put up 81 points in the 1986-1987 season, but it also would have been the most points by a defenseman in a season since the great Ray Bourque put up 91 points in the 1993-1994 season almost 30 years ago. So you could say that John Carlson had a pretty good season, but I'm sure that they are going to find a way to give the award to Victor Hedman again, as that's the way that these things tend to go with these awards. They seem to like to give them to the same guys every single year, regardless of who actually performed the best during the season, which is why they will probably find a way to give the Selke Trophy to either Patrice Bergeron or Ryan O'Reilly again as well. Even though Sean Couturier of the Flyers is certainly the one who actually deserves the award this season. And that really pains me to say that, that any Flyers player deserves any award whatsoever. But in this case, it is the truth. So anyways, whether he wins the award or not, John Carlson was the best defenseman in the NHL this season. And he's really just been getting better and better and better every year, especially since Todd Reirden came on board with the Caps. First as the defensive coach, and now obviously as the head coach. So he's worked with John Carlson and with all of the defensemen a lot over these last few years, especially when he was the defensive coach and that was his sole focus. He spent a ton of time individually with each of the Caps defensemen working on all sorts of different things. So what's really impressed me the most about John Carlson specifically is that while most guys they'll have the great season, they'll have the great playoff run, win the Stanley Cup as a result, and then sign the big money contract. And most guys who do those things sign the big money contract and then they just fall off the face of a cliff afterwards. Their level of play does a nosedive a lot of the time. They've got their contract worth, tens of millions of dollars, and no one can take it away from them now. And so all of a sudden they just forget how to hockey. But the complete opposite has been true for John Carlson, however, as he's only, like I said, gotten better and better since signing his 8-year, $64 million contract extension after winning the Cup with the Caps in 2018. So like I said, he had 68 points in that 2017-2018 regular season to lead all NHL defensemen. And again, like I said, he should have won the Norris Trophy that year as well. Then he followed that up by leading all defensemen in points in the playoffs as well. You'll remember, obviously, that he scored 20 points in 24 playoff games for the Caps en route to them winning the Stanley Cup. He was an absolute monster in the playoffs. And then the following offseason, he signs his 8-year contract extension. And since then, he's actually increased his point totals every season since, since leading all defensemen in points with 68 in the 2017-2018 campaign. Again, we mentioned it, but he put up 70 points last season and a whopping 75 points in just 69 games this season before the NHL shut down the regular season due to the coronavirus pandemic on March 12th. And again, he was on pace for 89 points this season had the regular season been completed. So he's really just getting better and better and better year over year over year. And that hasn't stopped since he signed his big money contract. He did a number of things this season that had not been accomplished by anyone in the last 30 plus years. He's just been incredible, really, and it's been really impressive and a lot of fun to watch as well. But anyways, we do have news. We do have news here of finalists for some of the other NHL awards as well. We're still waiting on the big one, which is the Hart Trophy. But we've got most of the other ones here. So we mentioned this one already. But the finalists for the Selke Trophy are Sean Couturier of the Flyers, Patrice Bergeron of the Bruins, and Ryan O'Reilly of the Blues. Couturier, like I said, he deserves it this season. So naturally, one of the other two guys will win it. That's my prediction. But for the Calder Trophy, which is for the NHL's best rookie, the finalists are Cale Makar of the Avalanche, Quinn Hughes of the Canucks, and Dominik Kubalik of the Blackhawks. So this one, all three of these rookies really impressive. There were some other rookies as well who were really impressive this season. But this one, for me, it has to go to Cale Makar. And judging by the voting that's gone on throughout the season, a majority of people have consistently agreed with that as well. And so he probably will win it, and rightfully so. So hopefully this will be one of the occasions where the Professional Hockey Writers Association gets it right. For the Ted Lindsay Award, which is actually voted on by the players, the finalists are Leon Draisaitl of the Oilers, Nathan MacKinnon of the Avalanche, and Artemi Panarin of the Rangers. For the Lady Byng Memorial Trophy, and this one is going to be really interesting, so stay with me here, because it goes to the player who, and I quote, has exhibited the most gentlemanly conduct and sportsmanship. And for this award for gentlemanly conduct, the finalists are Austin Matthews of the Maple Leafs, Ryan O'Reilly of the Blues, and Nathan MacKinnon of the Avalanche. So of those three finalists, we've got one guy who is, by all accounts, a good guy in Nathan MacKinnon. And then we've got one guy in Austin Matthews who likes to get drunk, drop his pants, and present himself to unwilling females in poorly lit parking lots late at night. And then we've got another guy in Ryan O'Reilly who also likes to get drunk, which, on its own is really not really anything to frown upon, if you ask me, but it's what he does after that. It's what he does after he gets drunk. So for O'Reilly, instead of dropping his pants like Austin Matthews does, Ryan O'Reilly, he likes to drunk drive his truck into unsuspecting Tim Hortons restaurants. So I'm not really sure what the NHL standard for gentlemanly conduct is here, but whatever it is, I'm fairly certain that Austin Matthews and Ryan O'Reilly are not it. So I don't really get this one on any level at all, and it's a bad look for you, NHL. And then for the Vezina Trophy, which of course is for the league's best goaltender, the finalists are Connor Hellebuck of the Jets, Andrei Vasilevsky of the Lightning, and Tuukka Rask of the Bruins. I think this one's got to go to Hellebuck simply because he's the only reason that Jets team was even within arm's length of a playoff spot this season. And then for the Jack Adams Award for Coach of the Year, the finalists are John Tortorella of the Blue Jackets, Bruce Cassidy of the Bruins, and then Alain Vigneault of the Flyers. So if it were me giving out this one, I would personally be giving it to Tortorella because he was basically coaching an AHL lineup all season long. With all of the injuries that the Blue Jackets had. And don't forget that they did lose Artemi Panarin, Sergei Bobrovsky, and a multitude of others to free agency before the season began as well. And so the fact that he was able to coach that lineup to a playoff spot is amazing. Artemi Panarin, like I said, he's up for the Ted Lindsay Award. He's probably going to be up for the Hart Trophy as well. They lost him before the season started. They lost Sergei Bobrovsky. They lost a number of other guys. And then just all the injuries that they had this season. It was staggering the amount of man games that they lost to injury. And still, John Tortorella able to coach that lineup to a playoff spot. So simply incredible. He deserves the Jack Adams, if you're asking me. And then we had some other news to share in this episode as well. As we know now that the Capitals will play one exhibition game prior to the round robin getting underway. And they will play that exhibition game against the Carolina Hurricanes on July 29th. So we will have some hockey in July. We'll have a hockey game in July. Just one for the Caps, but still, it's exciting. And then there's also been one minor schedule change for the Caps as their round-robin game against the Boston Bruins, which was previously scheduled, you'll remember, for Saturday, August 8th. It will now be played on Sunday, August 9th instead. So just to reiterate the Capitals round-robin schedule, they play the Tampa Bay Lightning on August 3rd, the Philadelphia Flyers on August 6th, and the Boston Bruins on August 9th. So we also learned today that because there will be no fans in the stands during this postseason, the NHL is apparently considering utilizing a 5-second delay during their TV broadcasts in order to monitor, and I assume to filter out, the abundance of curse words and derogatory remarks hurled by players, coaches, and even officials during the average NHL hockey game. So, not really sure about that. I'm not sure if maybe I should implement the same strategy on my podcast, or No, just kidding. We like it dirty here at Janae Talks Caps. And in other interesting news and updates, we've learned from Brenden Dillon himself that Brenden Dillon wants to re-sign with the Washington Capitals, and that his agent and Caps general manager Brian MacLellan are talking contract extension currently. So that would be fucking awesome. It's always been kind of assumed, after the Caps acquired Dillon at this year's trade deadline, it's always been kind of assumed that he would test the free agent market after the season had concluded. But that appears not to be the case. Dillon says he loves Washington, he loves his teammates, he loves the fans, he loves the style of hockey that the Capitals play, as well as the family atmosphere that they've cultivated in the locker room and around the organization. And he says he wants to be a part of it in the longer term. So that's awesome. So hopefully it works out so that he can stay. He is obviously a great player and a great guy, and definitely seems to be a great fit both on and off the ice with the Caps as well. And then in some free agent and trade news from around the rest of the league, Torey Krug of the Bruins. He sure sounds as if he's already mentally moving on from the Bruins organization. And it has been reported that he will indeed go to free agency. So that would be a huge blow, obviously, to the Boston Bruins. And then this one's interesting. A number of reputable sources around the Vancouver Canucks organization have reported that the Canucks are exploring trading Brock Boeser after the season in order to help with their salary cap troubles. So now, how a team gets themselves into cap trouble like the Canucks have, while still being a wildly mediocre team, to the point that they quite possibly have to trade what they had previously touted as a core piece of their rebuild that they'd been trying to accomplish. I will never understand. But hey, to each their own. So it sounds like they might be at least looking at what they could do in terms of a Brock Boeser trade. And like I said, it's been reported now from multiple sources. So, and then finally, in some very good training camp news for the Caps, Michal Kempny has joined the Caps on the ice for training camp since we aired our last episode last week. And head coach Todd Reirden has him skating on the top defensive pairing alongside of Norris Trophy finalist John Carlson. So it certainly seems that whatever was ailing Kempny to keep him out of training camp at the beginning is now not ailing him anymore. So that is great news. And I'll come back to Kempny and to just how great a piece of news this really is for the Caps in just a moment. But also just wanted to mention as well that Caps' first-round draft pick in 2018, defenseman Alex Alexeyev, he has also joined the Caps on the ice for training camp as of now. Today was his first day out there on the ice with the team, actually. And so he took part today. He took part in the practice, but not in the scrimmage, which leads me to believe that his absence was injury-related and not COVID-19 related. Because if it were COVID-related, he would not be on the ice or in the building at all until he were 100% recovered, probably 110% recovered, in which case he would obviously be able to take part in something like a scrimmage as well, as he would have no further limitations at that point. So it certainly seems as if his absence was not COVID-related. And again, this is all just what I'm deducing using my common sense and knowledge of how injuries around hockey work, because the team isn't actually allowed to tell us anything regarding injuries and illness during this strange COVID postseason. So it's all just educated guesswork on my part, but I am pretty confident in it. And so anyways, with Kempny and Alexeyev back, that now leaves Ilya Samsonov as the lone man on the Capitals' 34-man roster who has not yet been able to participate in training camp. And speaking of Kempny, I do want to get back to him for just a moment here before we wrap up this episode. Now, like I had mentioned, Todd Reirden has him skating on the top pairing again alongside of John Carlson. So this pairing was the same top pairing that helped the Capitals to win the first Stanley Cup in their franchise's history in 2018. But it was a pairing that we did not see a whole lot of during this most recent regular season, mostly because Kempny was majorly struggling on the ice for much of the season. And it was a pairing that we didn't see at all in the 2019 playoffs, because Kempny You'll remember he tore his hamstring right before this playoff started, and he had to undergo surgery to fix it. Considering that Todd Reirden had started to frequently make Kempny a healthy scratch leading up to the NHL's pause on March 12th, it is hugely encouraging to see that he is now seeing something in Kempny which gives him enough faith and enough confidence to put Kempny back on the top pairing alongside of John Carlson ahead of the playoffs. And now here's the key. You see, for me, I never understood all of the fans who were so hard on Michal Kempny this season. The guy's a great player who's been great for the Caps ever since they traded for him. He helped us win the Stanley Cup, and then he tore his hamstring, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's a pretty fucking important muscle, and especially for a hockey player, especially for a skater who relies on his smooth skating ability as much as Michal Kempny does. So he tears his hamstring, and he has to have a really major surgery to repair it. And this is a surgery that typically has a really long recovery and rehab period before you can ever be back to normal again. And so, yes, Kempny struggled during this regular season. He was just back from a major surgery. He's admitted that he wasn't fully healthy during the regular season. He wasn't fully recovered. His skating wasn't what it usually is because he hadn't had enough time to, properly recover and rehab. And then you normally have a full off season to train as well, by the way. And he didn't have any of that. So, he missed essentially a full off season of training, and was just kind of thrown right back into the fire. And so now, blessing in disguise, the NHL season gets paused on March 12th, and all of a sudden, Michal Kempny gets 4 full months to recover, to train, to get back into real proper hockey shape again. And now he says he's fully healthy, feeling like $1 million, feeling 100 times better, essentially, than he did in October. And obviously, it's pretty obvious to me that Reirden must see the same thing in him because he has him back on the top pairing again after making him a healthy scratch back in March. So this could potentially be absolutely huge for the Capitals. If Michal Kempny is now going to be the same player that he was during the 2018 playoffs, the Caps are instantly a much better, much deeper team. And obviously, the thing that works out just perfectly for the Caps here, is that because Kempny was not himself during this past regular season, the Caps went ahead and made the trade for Brenden Dillon at the trade deadline. So now, all of a sudden you have Brenden Dillon and now Michal Kempny's healthy again. And now all of a sudden you have more top 4 defensemen than you even know what to do with. And Kempny, he works so well with John Carlson, well enough to win the Stanley Cup, obviously. And so now, you can have Brenden Dillon playing with Dmitry Orlov, and all of a sudden you've got choices between Radko Gudas, Nick Jensen, Jonas Siegenthaler, etc. To fill out your bottom pairing. So these are problems that any team would love to have, I promise you. So all of a sudden, the defensive depth on this team goes from being absolute shit before this year's trade deadline to absolute beauty right now with a healthy Michal Kempny and a Brenden Dillon added to the mix as well. So that's just aces all around for the Caps. So anyways, Caps fans, that is all we've got for you today. Again, I want to thank you all so much for being here with us, for listening, for being such passionate fans of the Caps and of our show as well. And hey, listen, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast if you haven't done so already. We are available on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, on iHeartRadio, on Stitcher, on TuneIn, on Podcast Addict. So pretty much anywhere and everywhere that you would get your podcast from, we are on there. So make sure that you subscribe, share us with your friends and with your family, and with any other fellow Caps fans or hockey fans in general as well. And hey, leave us a review as well if you feel so inclined. I always do love reading your reviews, and I read every single one of them, so keep them coming. You can review us on Apple Podcasts or on a number of the other platforms that I mentioned as well. And you can also review us on our Facebook page as well, which is under Janaea Talks Caps. So anyways, until next time, Caps fans, you stay classy, stay healthy, stay safe, wear a fucking mask, take care of your fellow human beings, and start building up your beer supply in your fridge as well, because the playoffs are coming. And as always, babes, let's go Caps.